All right, if you're an iOS developer, you know this feeling all too well. You've been coding, you hit build, you run the app, and your layout is a complete mess. Things are all over the place, overlapping, just totally broken. Well, today we're going to dive deep and finally demystify one of the biggest headaches out there: auto layout constraint conflicts.
Ah, yes, this old friend, the infamous unable to simultaneously satisfy constraints. The moment you see this in your console, you just know you're in for a fun afternoon of debugging. But what if I told you that this error isn't a curse? It's actually a clue. It's the key that unlocks a powerful secret rule that governs your entire UI.
And what is that secret rule? Well, it all comes down to a single word: priority. Seriously, this is the most important concept you need to grasp to really master auto layout. It's the logic the system uses to figure out what to do when your rules start fighting each other. Once you get this, you stop fighting the layout engine and you start making it work for you. So what is it exactly? Well, every single constraint you create has a priority value, somewhere between 1 and 1,000. The best way to think about it is like a negotiation. With each constraint, you're telling auto layout, hey, this rule is super important, or, this one is more of a nice to have. This number is how the system sorts through all your requests to build a layout that actually works. Okay, let's focus on this magic number, 1,000. This isn't just the highest value, it's a special keyword. It means required. When you set a constraint's priority to 1,000, you are giving auto layout a direct order, a non-negotiable demand. It's not a suggestion. The system must satisfy this rule, period. And then you have, well, everything else. Any priority from 1 all the way up to 999 is considered optional. It's a preference, not a command. Auto layout will do its absolute best to follow the rule, but, and this is the key, if it clashes with a higher priority rule, especially a required one, it will break this one in a heartbeat to find a solution. So now that we understand the whole priority system, let's get to the heart of the matter. How are these annoying conflicts actually born? You might be surprised at just how simple the root cause is. And there it is. That's the entire problem in a single sentence. A conflict only happens when you give auto layout 2 or more contradictory rules that are both set to that non-negotiable required priority of 1,000. You've essentially backed it into a corner. It's stuck between a rock and a hard place with no way out. Here's a super classic example. You've told the system 2 things, both with that required priority of 1,000. First, this button's width must be 200 points. Second, the exact same button's width must be 300 points. Well, a button can't be 2 different sizes at the same time, right? So AutoLatum has an impossible choice to make. That's when it throws its hands up in the air and floods your console with that error. Okay, we get the problem. Now for the fun part. How do we actually fix it? Let's open up our conflict resolution toolkit. These are the practical, real-world strategies you can use to solve pretty much any layout issue that comes your way. We're going to look at 4 essential tools. First, the most obvious one, just adjusting the priorities themselves. Second, we'll talk about using some special content-based priorities. Third, we'll leverage Xcode's own detective tools. And finally, we'll do some cleanup by getting rid of redundant rules. Let's break them down. Tool number 1 is the most direct fix there is. Let's go back to our impossible button example. Instead of 2 required constraints, you just change one of them. By lowering the priority of that width equals 300 constraint to something like, say, 750, you're telling auto layout, look, try to make the button 300 wide, but if you can't, no big deal. That 200 width is way more important. And just like that, the conflict is gone. Now for a slightly more advanced tool. Content hugging and compression resistance are special kinds of priorities, and they're perfect for things with dynamic content, like labels or buttons. Think of it like this. Hugging prevents a view from stretching bigger than its text, while resistance prevents it from getting squished so small that the text gets cut off. You're letting the content itself have a say in the layout. Sometimes the conflict is buried deep and it's really hard to find. That's when you call in the detective, Xcode itself. Interface Builder will often show you little red or yellow warnings right there on the canvas. The Resolve Auto Layout Issues menu can sometimes even suggest fixes for you. And of course, that console log we keep talking about gives you specific clues about which constraints are in a fight. And our final tool is just plain old simplification. It is so easy to get carried away and just add one too many constraints. For instance, if you pin a view's leading edge, its trailing edge, and you tell it to be centered horizontally, you've overdefined its position.
Auto layout only needs 2 of those 3 things to know what to do. Removing that extra redundant constraint can often fix the conflict instantly.
So we've learned how to fix things when they're broken. But the real pro move is to stop them from breaking in the first place. This is about shifting our mindset from being reactive firefighters to being proactive architects, building layouts that are unbreakable from the start. So what does this proactive mindset actually look like? It's really just about applying what we've learned as good habits. From now on, whenever you add a constraint, think about its priority. Don't just accept the default. Actively look for and avoid adding rules you don't actually need. And for things like labels, always use content hubbing and resistance. The whole goal is to design for flexibility, not rigidity, so your UI can adapt beautifully.
And that's really the big takeaway here. We started out looking at priorities as the source of the problem, but they're not. They are the solution. They are the very tool that gives auto layout its intelligence. When you master priorities, you're not just squashing bugs, you're actually teaching your UI how it should behave, how it should adapt intelligently to any screen size.
And that brings us to the end. You now have the theory, you have the toolkit, and you can tackle any constraint conflict that dares to show up. So the only question left is, which one of your broken layouts are you going to go fix first?